what's going on?
What's up? How's it going?
I'm good, man. Just getting the day started here.
Nice. Well, before you get too deep into your day, I was calling you because I'm sure by this point you've heard the TikTok news. Obviously, everybody's commenting about it. We're commenting about it. But like we try to do a little bit more than just like comment on things for our audience and for our friends and colleagues. I guess really what I want to know is like, how can we actually take a futurist approach to what creators and creatives should be doing next, or at least planning to do next?
Yeah, for sure. And I think this is one of them situations, right? Like it's big change. It's scary
Yeah.
for everyone. Folks are anxious, especially like the smaller artists who are a little less established and need a platform like that for discovery.
Yeah.
So let's just jump in with some scenario planning, right? So that's
Okay.
essentially where you've got a new event, you've got a change in the marketplace, a change in your career, whatever that is, and then you start to develop like four possible outcomes or four possible scenarios, and then you just assess, all right, if scenario A happens, how would I react? Scenario B,
Yeah.
how would I react? So on and so forth. And it just helps you to think about the future in a way that's less confusing or scary because you've already thought about like, oh, well, here's what I'm going to do about it. It just kind of
Yeah.
gives
Yeah.
some of that
Yeah.
power back to you as a decision maker.
Okay, that makes sense. All right. So scenario planning, I could sketch that out. What does that look like?
Yeah, so it's like a 2x2 matrix, right? Like
Oh,
this. So
okay.
you've got
Yeah.
like a
Yeah. Yeah.
vertical axis, you got a horizontal axis, which creates like four different spaces, four different blocks, and then within each of those blocks, you put your scenario.
All right. I've got the quadrant set up now. What's the first scenario? What's the first sort of like futurist scenario?
The first thing I'll say, scenario one, is what if labels decide they're going to make their own social networks, social platforms, or sharing platforms, right? Like so many of them
Okay.
are driven by music, whether it's Instagram or TikTok, whatever these other channels are, right? Music is such a big part of it. And the labels could all just come together and say, hey, we've got the money, we've got the clout, we've got the connections. All of our artists are essentially influencers. And if
Yeah.
we have them all, get on there, boom, like that will be like, kind of a hack, a growth hack for us to get out there. This will give the
Yeah.
labels more control over culture. But unfortunately, it could squeeze out emerging artists, right?
That makes sense, and I feel like it's something we've talked about before. And if this were to happen, it does feel like, just based off of some of the experts that we've talked to, that it could be more of the same with record labels who
Yeah.
kind of they figure out who they can exploit, not necessarily in a bad way, but who's the most marketable. And almost like stocks and bonds, they throw it at the wall, see if it hits. And if
Yeah.
so, they'll invest more. If not, they'll dump it, which doesn't seem like a really sustainable way for creators moving forward. This doesn't seem like maybe the future that we want.
Yeah.
But let's just say this does end up being the future that we get. What are ways that creators can use their creativity to their advantage in this future?
Yeah, in this scenario, I don't know, man. It might be tough. It could be a situation where they honestly have to maybe get off of the platforms and pivot completely,
Yeah.
and start doing more, whether it's in person stuff, that a fan a day, growing their own platforms, right? So in the same way that like creators now get big enough to a certain point where it's like, yo, it makes sense for you to have your own newsletter, your own website, your own stuff that exists off of the platform that has benefited you the most. So I think that will probably be like the biggest advantage there.
Yeah.
And then maybe it's seeking out partnerships with brands or with other influencers that happen to be thriving on those apps that would help
Yeah.
them to like reach a broader audience, since organically it's going to be tough to break in competition with those bigger artists.
Makes sense. Okay.
Yeah, which is tough. If you're a musician, it's like, I'm not trying to do all that. I want to be a musician.
Yeah. Yeah.
But sometimes that's what it takes.
Sometimes that's what it takes.
It's not just, hey, I work in music. It's I work in the music business.
I love that. Yeah. Okay. All right. So we've got scenario one. sort of figured out, right? Scenario one is labels make their own social platforms.
Yeah.
And then artists will need to transition to creators and focus on partnerships to get a little bit of that control back. That makes sense. It feels like there's another possible future, though. So if there's a possible future where labels make their own social platforms, is there also a possible future where artists and creators come together to make their own social sharing platforms?
Yeah, definitely. I could definitely see that.
Okay, so what's going on in that future, I guess?
Yeah, so in this future, scenario two, if creators were to make their own, social or sharing platforms, I don't know if you remember, but like when Tidal first dropped, like when I first hit the scene, they had this like whole like big like press conference or whatever, and there was like a dozen artists on stage. It was like Jay-Z, I think Rihanna was there, maybe Usher, maybe Lady Gaga, right? And the thought was like, yo, this is a music platform, streaming platform that's owned by the artist, so they're gonna have a bigger cut and all of that. It ended up not really being as revolutionary as kind of how it was pushed. But perhaps that's what this could be, right? If creators start to own the platforms, then instead of so much of the profit, so much of the monetary gain going to like some big, maybe nameless, faceless corporation, it's more so being put into the artists that are creating the content, that are driving the culture forward, that are drawing people in to see their content, right?
That makes sense. And yeah, I think we've seen it work on the huge mega title scale, like you said, or not work. But but I think there's also, and back in I don't even remember 2015, 2017, like Tyler Creator's the golf app, right? Like he created a platform just solely around himself and Odd Future. Yeah. And so maybe we see, a similar thing where, like you said, it's not only for the Beyoncés and Jay-Z's and Rihanna's, but there's a platform that allows creators to come together, and create little ecosystems or publishing platforms around themselves. There's potentially less reach maybe with this, but at least, like you said, with less overhead and not needing to support as many as many artists, or just it increases the margins, right? So you might not be reaching the same amount of people as you're reaching with a label, or the same amount of people that you were reaching on let's say TV, right? If you got like some sort of spot or something like that through your label. But it does definitely give a lot more ownership and control.
Yeah.
What about a future that's like really, really kind of out there and subverting what we see nowadays? Because like 1 and 2 almost feel like natural futures. Is there a future that's a little bit more like out there?
Yeah. I could see, I don't know if this is out there. And maybe just from being a futurist, like nothing feels too far out there anymore.
Yeah.
Like, it can happen.
Yeah.
But scenario 3 I've been thinking about, right, is what would happen if a tech company just bought Universal Music Group, or like, several other labels, a conglomerate of labels, whatever it is. How might that look? Right.
That feels pretty out there to me, if I'm being honest.
So what if TikTok like turns the gun around? They're like, oh, like we're just gonna buy y'all out,
Okay.
So TikTok may not have enough cash on hand to buy out Universal Music Group. I don't know. I don't know their finances specifically, but I do know that Apple, Facebook, Google, Microsoft, and Amazon all have enough cash on hand to make this move right now. UMG is worth about 60 billion. That's their market cap. Each of the companies that I just named has at least 60 billion in just like cash on hand to make that move. Again, I don't know that it would make business sense, but they could do it conceivably.
If TikTok is going to sort of like run an artist team, I would imagine that means a lot more for content. So like I think artists would really have to focus on the content as much or even more than the music, right? Like the content might take priority over the music, which maybe, you know, maybe that's not the future that music or that musicians want, to have to be so content focused. But, you know, I think that artists might find themselves thinking about songs that they're going to make based on stories that they want to tell, or experiences that they want to document, rather than just like the music being the music of it all.
Okay, so that brings us to scenario 4. And similar to doing a science experiment, it's always good to have your control group, right? So the last scenario here for the future of TikTok, the future of music, is UMG just reconciles with TikTok, right? And you kind of maintain the status quo. In the past 5 years or so, TikTok has really become a hub for labels to promote new releases, but also to support like back catalogs. I would argue this year's song of the summer was Miguel's "Let My Love
Sure
Adorn
Thing.
You." Or was it? It was Sure Thing. My bad.
Yeah. Last year, 2023.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's say UMG reconciles with TikTok. We sort of keep the same social media record label relationship.
Yeah.
From I don't know, until the end of time, let's say. I still think that that's a future that creators can prepare for, and it feels like that creators still need to find a way to directly speak to their audience, right? Because if something as simple as a contract dispute can take away their viability in online audiences, then it feels like creators need to have a way to just be able to directly talk to. It might not mean they need to make a TikTok rival like scenario 2, right? Like they might not need to create their own social sharing platform, but they should at least strive to have some sort of community that they have direct contact with, so that they remain flexible in the case that, you know, a dispute or something like this ever happens again. They don't need to have as much control as scenario 2, but it would still be better for them to have a little bit of control, I think. But so, I mean, we've got 4 scenarios. We recorded this chat. This is the first time we've done sort of like a quick and scrappy chat like this with a little sketch. But, you know, anyone listening, let us know what you think of this scenario plan. We have scenario 1, scenario 2, scenario 3, scenario 4. Scenario 1 being labels make their own social platform. Scenario 2 being artists and creators make their own social sharing platforms. Scenario 3 being TikTok or another tech company buys out UMG or another record label. And scenario 4 is UMG reconciles with TikTok, and we kind of get that status quo of the label and social platform relationship. But yeah, those tuning in, which one of those scenarios would you want to see? Which one of these possible futures would you want to see come to fruition? We'd love to hear from you, and and let us know also if you like these sort of like quick and dirty recaps of news. You know, we like this. These are really the conversations that we have on a normal basis. So just trying to put them out there and have more content for y'all. For anyone listening to just the audio version of this, we will on our social media check our Instagram or LinkedIn. We'll post a graphic of the scenarios that we just went through.
Yeah, so thanks for tuning in. You know, as always, we are trying to help creatives, help creators, anyone that's in creative services, creative arts. Think about the future, prepare for the future, and just remove some of that anxiety around all the change that comes, so that you can take advantage of these things before they fully come to fruition. So this has been Dez and Gavin with tools for time traveling, and we'll catch you on the next one. Peace.
Cool. Peace.
So what's the scenario? Here we go, yo.